Welcome to Grit, the Real Estate Growth Mindset podcast, hosted by Brian Charlesworth, founder of Sisu. Sisu provides growth automation software for real estate. You'll hear stories from real estate thought and technology leaders, team owners, and brokers on how they grew their business in a rapidly changing industry. You'll learn how to transform your brokerage and teams into a high-performing and analytics-driven business so you have a new, durable, competitive advantage against disruption in your market. So let's get right into it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Grit Podcast. I'm Brian Charlesworth, and I am the founder of Sisu and the host of the show. And grateful to be with you guys today. Have a great guest here with us. George Laughton is joining us from Phoenix, Arizona. I would say if you're in real estate, you probably know who George is. The Laughton Group does over $1 billion in transactions. There aren't a lot of teams doing that. I think you did over 2,500 sides, roughly 2,500 sides last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, roughly. It fluctuates, but yeah, it's right around there.
Yeah, so for those of you in real estate, think about having a team that does 2,500 sides and how do you even manage that? So I want to dive into that a little bit today with George. So George, thanks for joining me on the show. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for inviting me, man. It's great to be here. So we appreciate what you're doing too, man. You know, Sisu and implementing a lot of the things within our business has been great. So we appreciate what you're doing out there.
Yeah, well, thank you. So George, we were talking before and I said, well, congratulations on being the #1 team in the world. We don't know if you are, but
yeah,
if you're not, you know, you're in the top 1% or 0.01%. So
yeah.
Anyway, I just like to maybe back up and say, like, how did you, like, I don't think you came around until like 2007. So in that time frame, how did you go from 2007, 2008 being the worst time to ever be in real estate? Some people feel like that may be now as well, but you made it through 2008 and made the ride. And in my opinion, those who made it through 2008 got to experience a phenomenal growth. And I think we're kind of on the cusp of that again, but I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think every market presents its opportunities, and 2007, 2008 was an interesting opportunity. And so I think what we've done well over the years is always figuring out where the opportunity exists and kind of ride that wave and try to get early in on the wave. And that's exactly what happened in 2007. I mean, I was doing investment real estate. I had my license about a year, but I've been doing investment real estate for a couple of years and was really trying to build my own rental portfolio and realized that I could only buy so many rentals with my limited income, and started helping other people do that and buy investment properties. And then it turns into traditional real estate. And that was a matter of like 1 year. And then I saw a couple foreclosure signs pop up on my street. And I was like, oh, well, there's a segment of the industry here. And how big do I think this is going to be? And started doing some research on it and decided, well, maybe it is a segment of the industry I want to get into. And so I went pretty hard into foreclosures, REO properties, short sales, early 2007. And we were able to capture some institutional sellers, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HSBC, Wells Fargo. And it was just a crazy time, right? And so that was built up a team of about 25 people from, 2007, 2008. And the peak was really kind of 2009 for us for that REO market. And then it slowly trickled down. And as I'm trying to figure out, like, I've always have those waves of the market, whether it's short sales, foreclosures, whether it's REITs buying properties, whether it's Zillow offers, whatever that is.
Yeah.
We see that as like, always see that as like channel accounts or opportunities, but then I have my core business, right? And so the core business is what drives everything else. And so that's the traditional real estate side of it. But you don't get the other opportunities unless you run a really, really good core business, right? And so that's what we focused on, is trying to build that good core. And for us, my model is even at a little bit lower margin, so I can be in a position to capture bigger, better opportunities, right? So
yeah, makes sense. So how many agents do you guys have now, and how many locations to do that kind of volume?
So we have 250 agents here in the Phoenix market. Phoenix is like sprawled out very wide. And so we have 4 offices here in the Phoenix market and then one in Tucson, which is 2 hours south of Phoenix. And so 250 agents between those locations. And then you have pod leaders in each one of those. So anywhere from 25 to 40 agents under that pod leader, that team leader, essentially. And that's taking what I did when we were a team of 25, 30 and just made it duplicatable, right? That was kind of
Yeah.
the goal is like, okay, I can only manage so many agents. And how do you duplicate this? And we figured out good incentive structures for our team leaders and location geographically. We know real estate's done, by the neighborhood. And we wanted to have agents that lived and existed and went to coffee shops and kids went to school in the areas that we were sending them leads. And so we just took that playbook and tried to duplicate it across other submarkets within Phoenix.
When you're that size, you guys, I think about, you were just talking about, when you had 25 agents, now you're 250, so you're 10x that. How do you get to 250 agents? Like, I know your focus needs to change as a leader, and you've hired all these people. I know, you have all these leaders on your team that you've brought in. How did you go about finding these leaders, and where did you get them from? Because I think that's one of the most important things we can do is surround ourselves with the right people. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge that most people in real estate have is really recruiting top talent versus, just thinking they need to bring everyone up from in their team. I don't know. How did you go about that?
Yeah, I think really getting clear with what my strengths were and then what the needs of the company were that I wasn't super good at. And so trying to identify those people. And I'll say there's been a lot of key hires along the way, and there's been a lot of people that didn't work out. And so inevitably, what I look for is one, like coachability is like one of the biggest aspects. Because
Yeah.
if we don't align on decision making, I have to believe and know that we can get alignment. And so for me, that's like one of the number one factors is like, okay, if you're not humble and coachable and we can't come to some sort of collaborative understanding, then
Yeah.
it really is hard. And so I would say that, there was no like as far as like key first hire, obviously you have the assistants, you have TCs, there was all of that. And my original assistant TC, is long gone and out doing other bigger, better things, I'm sure. But I'd say the key role for me was the operator, right? It's kind of that visionary operator combo, which unlocked growth. And so what I always tell my team and my leaders is that we haven't won yet. Like growth is the vision, always will be the vision. And so I'm always constantly willing to reinvest in this business because we want more and we have more to give. That's the key thing. But I would say the key hire was that great operator that could go out and help me execute the vision.
Yeah, makes sense. I read a book a couple of years ago now, and I think it's The Four Disciplines of an Extraordinary Leader. And it talks about the three things you want to look for when you hire somebody is number one, what you said, George, they're humble. Second, that they're hungry.
Yeah.
And third is that they're smart. And in that order, right?
Yeah.
They have to be humble, hungry, and smart.
Yeah.
If you can find those three characteristics in somebody, usually they're going to be a good hire.
Yeah, I would agree. We talk about that a lot. Like humble, hungry, smart, skill or the will. Like, hey, if they don't, they don't have the skill, I'm fine with it. But if you got the will and the drive too, and you're coachable, then we can help get you there. And we've seen that we're super patient with people if they have those things, right? Humble, hungry, and smart. Some people that we've hired have been like, okay, feel bad saying, but like they're a little bit of a project, right? But you're okay, you're willing to invest the time and energy into them because one, they're loyal, they're committed, and you know that at their core, they're a good human. And so
Yeah.
I'm willing to invest the time in them. And then you have like, I always put it like partners, projects, and problems, right? So I've got the people that are my partners. Like, I know we're going to get through it thick and thin together, and they're going to be a part of this organization because we're so aligned. There's the projects of the people we're working to develop to get there to the partnership aspect. And this is agents and operations team alike. And then there's problems. And, that's where you have to decide, like, do we have to part ways? And generally that's,
Yeah.
generally what has to happen.
Yeah, makes sense. Tell me, where do you focus most of your time now?
Man, there's a lot of meetings. I have to tell you, my time is spent in understanding like how the business is operating, where we can have the biggest impact and what needs to move. And so we run off an EOS kind of operational system, which has quarterly rocks and we're tracking KPIs. And my focus is, probably like, higher up like KPIs, like kind of almost lag indicators at a sense. But when a lag indicator starts to move in the wrong direction, we have the insights into the KPIs to drill down to see what the problem is. And so we run our one-on-ones, or our, in EOS, they would call it like a level 10 meeting. We run like this combo of a level 10 and what I would call a WBR, right? Like a weekly business review, which is like, I think it was an Amazon thing. I don't know where it started, but I'm looking at the KPIs and they're kind of lag indicators at that point, but we're drilling down and I'm asking my leader, okay, like, have you thought of this? What's going on here? Okay, well, let me see this number because maybe this is the problem. And then I get anecdotal like feedback from them too. I'm like, well, what's going on in the agent side of things? And then trying to get in the trenches with the agents as well, like spending time in the offices. I spent a lot of time this morning just in a text thread with my top 20 producers on the team, talking
Okay.
about a sign writer. Like, hey, I saw this sign writer yesterday that was essentially offering buyer agent compensation, like in a cool, clever way, just letting them know that, it was being offered on that house. I was like, hey, we need to come up with something cool for the team as well. Let me make sure this is all compliant first and foremost. But, it's a morning of that going back and forth and just engaging those the people, that the doers in the business, and letting them have a voice and an opinion in what we're trying to accomplish too. And so that's why I'm trying to focus, like spending time with the people that are actually executing and doing, staying focused on driving the business forward for our quarterly rocks and turn into our annual rocks, and making sure that we have a good year, and thinking about what this business looks like 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and making sure that
Yeah.
we're positioned well for that as well too. So a lot of time in the future, but I try to stay in the trenches because I don't want to lose sight of that. There's these, I think every big company is trying to get grassroots and every small company is trying to scale. And I'm trying to find that beautiful balance of the two, right? Where I
Yeah.
can
Well
be,
said.
yeah,
Well
I can be
said.
both.
Hmm.
It is a little hard, but I enjoy that part and I enjoy serving the agents and serving our clients. So that's what fills me up, is seeing this young 25-year-old agent go out there and crush their goals and dreams and change their lives, right? Like that really is kind
Yeah.
of the fulfilling part of it. And the homeowner too, the single mom that's rented for the last decade, never thought she could buy a house, finally has keys to her own home. Like that's the stuff that hits you in the feels, man. Like it feels great.
Yeah.
And so I try not to get too far away from that, because if you're looking at KPIs all day and managing the business, you'll forget what all that's about.
Right. Right. The thing I love about the EOS is it lets everyone focus on what they're accountable to,
Mhm.
right? You have KPIs for every piece of your organization. And that's how we run our business as well. Like, no matter what role you're in, everybody knows exactly what
This
they're
is,
responsible for.
yeah.
And they report out on those every week, right? So the one thing I caught there that you said, I focus on my top 20, like, I think a lot of people maybe spend time with the people at the bottom thinking they need to get them to the top. But if you focus on your top people, it's going to make those bottom people want to rise to the top so they can spend that time with you, is what I've found. Have you seen the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. And spending time with the middle, right? Like emerging talent, those ones that are actually doing the activities is super important too. But those ones that are doing it day in and day out, and honestly, like they don't ask for a ton a lot of times on my side. Like,
Mhm.
they're good people. They've been with me for a number of years. And then there's some that, just gotten in the last year, but I know them and I know the hard work that they're putting in. And so I never want to lose sight of that. Like how hard, it's not easy being an agent, a buyer's agent
Yeah.
out there, a listing agent. They work incredibly hard and try never to lose sight of that. And so just get engaged. But then there are some, we break up our team in 4 levels of agents, level 1 being the lowest, level 4 being the highest. And so that top 20, there's some level 3s and level 4s in there, but getting level 2 agents to move to level 3 is where your future revenue is at. And, not to think of people just as a revenue number, but you've got to identify those and identify the doers in there, and then start making sure that you're feeding into them and that you're building them up.
Is that public knowledge within your organization that
Yeah.
you have 4 levels of agents?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing this is something that has helped you keep your agents around long term.
Yeah.
What do they get at that each of those levels, if you don't mind sharing? I think it's an important
Yeah.
thing for everyone to understand.
If you've been enjoying Grit, please help us continue to grow the channel by leaving a 5-star review and sharing it with a friend. Now back to Grit.
So one, it gives them something, a roadmap for how you grow with the team. And it kind of takes away a lot of the splits conversations too is like, hey, I had a really good year, George. Like, I want to change my splits? I'm like, okay, well, you're level 2, and at level 3 this happens. And so the things that change with each level, one, you have to have a certain production level. We base it on sales volume, but with a minimum number of transactions. Like, we would love for you to do 5 $2 million listings, but also I want to make sure that you're doing the volume transaction count as well
Mhm.
too. But ultimately it's based on annual sales volume, and once they hit a sales volume, then they can move up to the next level. It does happen exactly at the time in the year when they do hit that sales volume, they can go ahead and move up. What happens at that point? Splits change a little bit, and that's really just on SOI side. So their sphere of influence splits will change. Company generated doesn't change a ton. We do have some that change once you hit, like, so after level 4, I don't want to overcomplicate this. After level 4, you can start building a team within the team. And at that point, we actually do change their company generated splits. But what changes is company splits and then opportunities towards different lead sources. So we know that there's a hierarchy of leads out there. Like a PPC lead is much different than a Zillow seller lead, right? Or
Right.
a sign call compared to, Facebook lead, much different leads. And so we try to take the hierarchy of leads and give those to the doers, give the better converting ones and higher converting ones because they've earned that opportunity. And then the other thing that we try to offset is some operational support, some more support with open houses, like an open house sign service where we'll put the signs out for them. We do other marketing aspects. They can rent an ISA for the day, things along those lines. What's interesting though is I thought they'd really lean into the operational side of it, but most of the things that we were trying to create didn't get a ton of adoption, and so we're trying to rethink that, but really the splits and change in leads have been a significant difference. And not just lead sources, but lead price points.
Yeah.
So we put a bottom on the floor of the price point of leads they'll get. And then there is no maximum, right? They can get a $5 million lead. But if you're a level 1 agent, we're not sending you a, $2 million deal, and they're getting some of the $250,000 ones too, right? So,
Makes sense.
yep.
So when you get to your level, George, like you've grown so much in the last decade. Who do you look for to learn? Do you have a coach, and does that coach change regularly, or has that
Um,
coach been with you for long term, or who is it
yeah,
that's helping you get to that next level all the time?
other counterparts across the country, like I mastermind with. A lot of that's
Okay.
through the Tom Ferry organization. So I coach directly with Tom, which has been, and for a number of years I have. I also mastermind with everybody that's like me across the country, from the Gary
Yep.
Ashens, to Levi Rogers, Greg Sanders, like all of those, DJ Del Salas, right? Like, we're
Yep.
constantly communicating and talking best practices. And that's been super helpful. Outside of that, I spend a lot of time learning. So any kind of, like, right now, one of the things I'm trying to focus on is aligning incentive packages a little bit better. And so you can pick up a book and learn more about incentive packages. AI is an amazing thing. And
Hmm.
so I get a lot of mentorship from authors, John Maxwell, Simon Sinek, to Gino Wickman, as we talk about EOS. All of those things have been my mentors over the years. There's always a book to pick up when I think I know what the problem is and I'm trying to move something in our business.
Yeah, it's great. One of the things I've seen is a business can't outgrow its leader, right? So the leader has to continue growing for the business to continue growing. So anyway, and I see you've done an amazing job of that. Just a couple more questions. Phoenix has always been a market. I stepped into this industry about 9 years ago. I grew up with a dad in real estate. He had a brokerage and was an entrepreneur. And then my wife, about 9 years ago, asked me to help her grow her real estate team, which was 5 agents at the time. Now it's
Yeah,
about 100 agents, but
that's awesome.
still not anywhere near your size. But I really got to dive in and upfront and personal, see the challenges of growing a real estate business. But one of the things I've done is, as we've grown Sisu over the years, she has been like my beta for everything I roll out. And I've noticed that you're kind of that with Zillow. Like every time Zillow wants to roll something out, it seems to hit your desk. How did this all come about? And the other thing is the Phoenix market seems to be like everything happens there first. Like the REO market, everything that happens big in the industry happens there first.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just enlighten me on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think Phoenix makes it a great one. So we're a test kitchen market. A lot of prop tech, fintech come here first. And why they like Phoenix, a number of reasons. There's good transaction volume. You know, in a normal market, we're doing 90 to 100,000 transactions a year. Very homogenous housing stock. You know, most of it's built after 1985. And there's a good talent pool. Like, you got a lot of real estate agents. You got population growth, people moving in and out. So it makes it a really good market to kind of test stuff in. Where it came out to kind of be the go-to guy for Zillow's beta testing everything, we're operationally minded. I bend towards operations. I'm probably, if I told you my staff size, you know, people would go, oh my gosh, that's more people than you need. And
What
I would
is it?
agree. Well, so we're at 28 people right now,
Okay.
27, 28. And you talk to, you know, Gary Ashton's and DJs and stuff like that. They're running with, you know, half that staff, probably
Half of that, yeah.
60% that staff. But it goes back to my philosophy of, one, I run the core business on a little bit lower margin because I want to be prepared for where the market's going and spending money and time and innovation and thinking like, what does this industry look like in 5, 10 years?
Yeah.
You talk AI and you talk, you know, so many other things going. And so I pulled my best operator out of our core business to go build something else, right? And I'm like, hey, we need some more lead generation. I see this as an opportunity and this is an opportunity. And so I continue to reinvest in those things. But Zillow is like this for a number of years because that's what we do. I have the team and I have the staff to make sure that we can focus on the next pilot program. I've ran 30 plus pilot programs with not just Zillow, but Open Door to other small, you know, prop tech companies. And we're just the guys that they know they can go to and we'll get it done for them. And I enjoy doing it. Like, I really like, that's the stuff that excites me, is trying to figure out what's next. And I don't know if that'll ever change.
Well, good. I'm happy to hear that because I've got something I want to run through you and have you
We're
be
here,
the
man.
first to prove it, but we'll take
Yeah.
that offline.
Yeah.
So, you know, this whole time, and I think what set you apart than anybody else is you're always looking ahead. You're always saying, hey, what's the next thing that's going to like take me to that next level? With this whole lawsuit going on and things changing in August, I'd like to get your thoughts on like what is going to differentiate you from the rest, or what do others need to do to differentiate themselves from your typical agent moving forward,
Yeah.
because the market's changing, right? I mean, there are changes that have to happen. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. There's a couple things here. And what I've instructed my team, one is there are definitely going to be some changes, but I'm trying to exercise some tactical patience right now too. You know, there's still some uncertainty exactly how everything's going to look. We're getting closer and closer to at least what the first V1 of this is going to be. And so getting the team prepared for that with good scripting, different versions of buyer broker, from a showing agreement to non-exclusive to exclusive buyer broker agreements, and when to say that and how to utilize all of this. We've been working with our team for the last year on making sure that they're well prepared for this. But I also go like, what's probable and what's possible? There's a lot of possibilities. I think the probability and the impact to the industry is not as significant as most are weighing it to be. I think there is some impact, but it's one of those, there's been a lot of changes in the industry, and that's kind of being in it for, you know, 18 years. I've seen a lot of changes over the years, and nothing really worries me anymore. I sleep well, and I sleep probably better in a storm. So I don't mind it because I know we can position ourselves well. And this isn't a big, hard pivot at the end of the day. You know, let's say flat fee model starts really working. You know, they capture a ton of market share, and we have to rethink how our business is structured and how agents are compensated and all of these things. Like, I don't see that happening. It's possible, but how hard of a pivot is that? It's not. We can do it, and I don't have a lot of other options, Brian. Like, I'm in this, and we're going to figure it out. So that's why none of that really worries me too much. I also try to focus on, I think this is a Bezos quote, I can't remember, but I try to focus on what's not going to change. And we know that the consumer really wants a guide through the process. They really like buyers, as much as you see people chat online and they say that, you know, buyers agents don't do anything. I think we've over the years have insulated our clients how incredibly difficult it is to buy a house.
Yeah.
We've shielded them from the minutia and the intricacies of buying a house, which is a good thing. That's what we wanted to do. We want to keep it, remove the pain points, remove the drama, make sure that they just get to the end point. We have to get better at communicating that, communicating what we do to serve our clients. Unfortunately, right? Rather than just shielding them from it. Because I was the guy that said, no, insulate your clients from all the minutia of the day to day. And now I'm saying, well, how can you better articulate all the services and the things that you provide? And so that's what we're working on now is like, how do we turn on the lights for our clients without it feeling like they're getting this attorney bill, in a sense.
Well, that's very interesting, George, because one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about after this, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it now, is I think a big part of what buyer's agents need to do is communicate more directly as far as the value they're bringing. And so I'm working with a lot of our teams right now to help them do that in the client portal. And not just in our client portal, it notifies people of what the transaction coordinator is doing during the life of the transaction. It notifies them, we just had the home inspection. Now we might be negotiating terms. Then we're going to have the appraisal, those types of things. But what I think is so important right now is for a buyer's agent or a listing agent to just do a better job of communicating what they're actually doing even before they show up to that first appointment.
Yeah.
And the value they're bringing and how they differentiate. I've shared this a few times with others, but I sold real estate for about 18 months. And in that 18 months before I started Sisu, when I started, I sold 48 homes my first year, most of which were
Nice.
listings.
You'd be a level
And
4, just so you know.
what's that?
I said you'd be a level 4. Did you say 48
I'd be
homes?
level 4
You'd be
on
level
your
4.
team. All right,
Yeah.
good to
You'd be on
know.
the text thread.
But what happened was my first 6 months, my conversion from appointments met to signed was 25%. And I was doing expireds. So I was competing against some of the top agents in the Utah market. But a major thing happened, and I had a coach that actually told me, okay, now that you're used to going out and getting your butt kicked, let's work on doing a better job, right? Because I had the mindset, I had the activities. Now it was, okay, go out and ask better questions. But the big thing that really changed it for me was delivering a pre-listing packet the day before my listing appointment.
Yeah.
And that helped me go to a 75% conversion rate. So anyway,
Makes a difference. Then that's what we moved our to signed agreement, from appointment to signed agreement, moved when we did like a pre-listing pack, but like a listing presentation video. Essentially, it goes over a lot of the same stuff. And today I'm actually shooting our new like buyer consultation video. So going through how we're rework the script like many times. It's probably gonna have to change again once all this dust kind of settles. But I wanted to arm the team with something, right?
Yeah. So these videos, these resumes, these referrals, all these, the comps, the showing how quickly you can get somebody under contract on it for a buyer, all these data points are things that I think need to go out in our client portal before you even meet with the client. So the client has reviewed those before you even arrive.
100%.
So anyway, that's something I'd like to work with you on. And you guys are the test case for the world in changing real estate. So
yeah.
So anyway, it sounds like we're on the same vein of thoughts on where things need to go here.
Yeah,
And so
agreed.
George, what advice do you have for just people in the market? I think there's a lot of fear right now.
Oh, that was where I was gonna go, man. Like,
I talked to a team owner 2 months ago, and they were actually thinking about canceling Sisu. And I asked him how come, and they'd used Sisu for a couple of years, and at a very high level. And his response to me was, "I don't know if I'm going to be in business in 2 months."
yeah, there's this, productive paranoia that some business owners have. And I've been known to go down that vein as well, too. And I would say every agent is an entrepreneur, and you can get stuck in that pessimistic view at some point, but how long do you stay there? You can't stay there very long, man. And that's what I'm seeing is this fear is overrunning people. That's when I know, like, I have to have awareness when I'm doing that and shift to optimism. Like, more than anything, the people that succeed in business are relatively optimistic in what they believe is going to happen in the market. And so while there might be a blip on this. I'm not retiring tomorrow. So we'll get through whatever this has to throw at us. And I really think it's a small blip, guys. And I think that we come out of this even stronger. Maybe the agent population, which needs to thin out a little bit. Some people, go and some of the agents that are part-time get out of the business. But yeah, there's going to be some impact. But man, you cannot let fear dictate your decisions by any
Yeah.
means. Like I'm
So
continuing to reinvest in the business and go full force ahead. And my hope is that I want everybody to have that philosophy, but I also want to capture market share from those that are afraid. So,
yeah.
I still want to capture as much as I possibly can.
Well, my belief is we're sitting on a similar situation to 2008. I mean, we've seen agent count drop from 1.6 million to 1.15 million. My guess is it might get below 1 million this year. And that creates opportunity for people like you that are here for the long run, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's the infinite game, right? If you're,
Yeah.
yep. So,
Yeah. So last thing, George, you said if you're going down that road, you catch yourself. If you're going down that pessimistic road, you catch yourself. And you said it's usually fear that drives that. So how do you make the switch and go from fear to gratitude? Because we know gratitude and fear can't exist, right? It can't coexist.
yeah.
And I know you're a person of gratitude. So how do you make that shift? What advice you have for people to make that shift if they are in that state? How do you get out of that?
Yeah, I caught myself in it just this last week, going down that route. And what I'll do, the funny thing is so awareness that you're going down it and then being able to change your thoughts and shift to gratitude. And so that really, how do you gain awareness is meditation. Like by far, it is the best practice. And I just re-challenged myself to 60 days straight of meditation, like wake up in the
Awesome.
morning, first thing I do. And it's so funny. Once you start feeling better, you get away from the practice. You're like, okay, all right, everything's fixed, but they call it a practice for a reason, man. And you got to come back to it. So meditation prayer like is really important to me. And so I can get caught up in like, okay, I woke up at 5 and I want to get to these emails. I want to get this done. I want to do this and I want to do this. But if I start my day out that way, and I feel I have more awareness throughout the day as I'm going down those paths of negativity and now abundance and gratitude.
Yeah, that's such great advice, George. Everybody, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Grit Podcast. We had George Laughton here today, one of the top teams in the United States and has been for the last decade. George, super grateful to have you on the show today, and thanks for sharing with our listeners.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on our podcast. If you have an interest in a free 7-day trial of Sisu, go to sisu.co, sisu.co. Make sure that you use the coupon code GRIT, that's GRIT, to waive all your setup fees and receive a 10% discount on your subscription. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and want to subscribe, search GRIT, the Real Estate Growth Mindset, on iTunes, Spotify, or Podbean. And with that, we'll catch you next time. Take care.